Good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Rachel Fisher. I am the Member Services Librarian for Technical Services. I provide training and support to the Technical Services departments of the member libraries. So I do see several new names on our list of registrants for the webinar today. So welcome to your new positions with the CCS Library. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me at the help desk by emailing help@ccslib.org. So today I'm going to review the acquisitions setup tasks in LEAP that are available with the 7.1 upgrade, as well as the functionality that is missing and still requires the client. So I'm going to begin by reviewing what is and is not functioning in LEAP version 7.1. Then I will switch to the training version of LEAP and demonstrate the Find tool for acquisitions, as well as how to create fiscal year, fund, and supplier records. So I have split up the acquisitions topics into two sessions, one for this week and one for next week, so that we can keep the webinars a bit short and focus more on specific topics if you have any questions. So for those of you who are new to CCS, our supplier is Innovative. Innovative upgrades the library management system in an incremental manner. So this means that it adds a smaller amount of the functions to the LEAP web app with each upgrade instead of waiting until they're ready to upgrade the whole application all at one time. So this does mean that the full workflow is not available in LEAP yet, but you can begin to familiarize yourself with its functionality, learn about the functions that are available, and test it out and let us know if there are any problems that you experience that we should forward on to Innovative. So with the current version, the 7.1 upgrade, the fiscal year, fund, and supplier records are nearly completely functioning. Innovative still needs to add some functions to fund records. So at this time, you can allocate funds, adjust allocations, and transfer funds. However, fund records are still missing the ability to adjust the encumbrances and expenditures the way you would do in the client. Additionally, the fund hierarchy view has not been added to LEAP yet, so funds can only be viewed in an alphabetical order and not in the manner that displays the hierarchy of the parent and the summary fund. I am hearing some extra noise. Can you mute yourselves? Thank you. So next week, I will be demonstrating the EDI workflow. At this time, purchase orders and invoices cannot be created manually in LEAP. So only EDI functions are available. This includes bulk adding titles to purchase orders and paying invoices. However, it does not include ASN or EDI processing for partial shipments yet. I'll speak on this in more detail next week. I have included in the slides that I'll be sending out to you a link of resources. So this includes the link to the acquisitions in LEAP course and the link directly to the pages on the CCS website for the Find tool, fiscal year and fund records, and the supplier records. Are there any questions about what I've covered so far? You can type it into chat or unmute yourself. Okay, I am going to switch screens to share Leap. One moment. Okay, here we go. You should be seeing Leap right now. So I am going to begin this demonstration with a review of the Find tool in Leap. This can be accessed by pressing the Find button at the top of the screen. So one thing that has not been added to Leap yet are the links drop-down menus that you are familiar with in the client. These menus allow you to quickly access records that are linked to each other from that drop-down menu. The fiscal year is properly linked to fund records because you are required to access the fund record through the fiscal year. But you will need to use the Find tool to search for all other record types. So one of the main differences between the client and Leap is that Leap does not have separate drop-down menus for the different workflows. So in the database drop-down menu, which is the first drop-down menu in the Find tool, this links every single record type. So we have the fiscal year. You can search for and access the fund records here, as well as from the fiscal year. The invoice, purchase order, supplier, and templates. You can click on the star to set a default. So I'm going to click on fiscal year since I am doing a demonstration on set of tasks. We'll start with that, and I will return back to the Find tool when I work on supplier records to demonstrate searching for supplier records. The second drop-down menu are the same modes that you are familiar with in the client: Basic, Power, and SQL. Today, I will be just demonstrating basic search, and next week I'll do a SQL demonstration. The qualifier column is the third column. These values will change depending on the type of record you are searching for. This includes the keyword fields like fiscal year name, fund, fiscal year status, and selecting one of these will change your search text box to a drop-down menu if it requires a drop-down menu, or back to the text box if it uses a text search. So I'm going to select fiscal year status, which will change the text box to a drop-down menu to find open fiscal years, and click on open. The Find tool does have a robust amount of filters that you can use to help you search. You can find the filters by clicking on this funnel icon. You can add as many conditions as you like by pressing Add Condition. So I am going to need to select owner to find a fiscal year, and I will just choose Evison. And if you needed to add any additional filters, you can do that by pressing the plus symbol. And remove them by pressing the minus symbol. So once I press apply, this filter turns green, or the icon turns green. And I can press the magnifying glass to search, and then open to open the fiscal year record. The fiscal year record is pretty much the same on the Details tab as what you are familiar with. It includes the name, the owner, the start and end date. But to access the funds, you can click on the Fund tab. The only drop-down menu that it has right now that is useful is the Actions tab. But this would only allow you to delete the fiscal year once you've already deleted all of the funds. So as I said, at the moment, there's no hierarchy view, so it has the funds listed in alphabetical order. Hopefully the hierarchy view will be added soon. To open up a fund, just click on the row for the fund. And so you can see that it has 4 tabs: details, history, balances, and donor. So the details tab just includes the name, the alternative name, the type, and the owner, as well as the options to turn off and on the transfer setting and the display setting. Keeping the transfers checkbox checks allows you to transfer the funds the money from one fund to another, and display controls whether the name of the fund displays in drop-down menus. So this is useful to uncheck if you use summary funds or plan to not use a fund anymore. The history tab displays the transaction history. And the balances tab allows you to adjust the encumbrance and expenditure limits. This is also done automatically when you add allocations to the fund. And then there's the donor tab for donation fund accounts. So I am going to close this and demonstrate how to create a new fiscal year and fund. So we do have a limited amount of options under the new drop-down menu at the top of the screen. For acquisitions, we have the fiscal year and supplier. It does not allow you to create a new fund record from the new drop-down menu. You have to create that from your fiscal year record. So I'm going to select fiscal year and type in a year, a name for the year, and select an owner. I'm going to leave the start and end dates as they are today, and then press save. And then I will need to add the funds. To do that, click on Funds, press New Fund, and then you need to add in the name, and the alternative name is required, so I'll add in an alternative name. Next, you can choose the type. So most funds are the regular type, but I know that some libraries do have deposit accounts and donation funds. So this will be regular. I had chosen Algonquin for the fiscal year, so I'm going to choose the owner as Algonquin, and I'm going to leave transfers and displays checked so I can demonstrate transferring funds and then press save. So after I have saved the fund, I can allocate money. Under the Actions tab, we have Adjust Fund Balances. And this will allow you to assign your beginning allocation. Assign beginning allocation is already checked. So I'm going to add $5,000. If you want, you can add a note and then press Update Fund. Once you have added the initial allocation, the Actions drop-down menu changes, and it allows you to either adjust the fund balances or transfer money. So you can see on the History tab that the allocation has been added to the account, and that the encumbrance limits and expenditure limits have been automatically updated for the beginning allocation. So I'm going to add some additional funds. If I add in the supplementary amount of another $1,000 and update the fund, This will also be added to the history, but it doesn't automatically add the amount to encumbrance limits and expenditures. So this is something you may want to update. So I'm just going to go through and add $1,000 to the limits and press save. Okay, so in order to transfer funds, I need a second fund. So I'm going to add another fund, and I'll add a nonfiction fund. And press save. And I'll have to allocate money to that fund. So I'm going to assign the beginning allocation of $5,000. And now I can demonstrate how to transfer funds. So to transfer funds from one account to another, or from one fund to another, you need to open up the fund record that you are transferring from. So I'm going to transfer it from the fiction to the nonfiction and open up the fiction first. Under the Actions drop-down menu, I'm going to press Transfer Money. If there were more funds, you would then have to select the fund from the list to transfer it to and type in the amount, a note if you need to, and press transfer. So this has added that to the transaction history as an outgoing transfer. And oops, I closed out of that. And it has also added it to the as an ingoing transfer to the other fund. Are there any questions about fiscal year and funds, or would you like me to demonstrate anything else again? So Victoria asks, one would only create a fiscal year if they were not doing this through the rollover process. Correct. Yes. When the fiscal year is rolled over or replicated, it is automatically created, and then you would only need to search for the fiscal year and allocate the money to the funds. And so you would begin by just doing a search with the find tool, as I had demonstrated, and then click on the Funds tab to access each fund. But there are libraries that I know of that like to create their fiscal years before the end of the fiscal year, and do create them on their own every year instead of utilizing the rollover process to create it for them. So this is something that they might be interested in doing in the future. So if I have gone too fast, please let me know. I can go back over the demonstration and repeat anything that you're interested in seeing again. Are there any other questions? Okay, I'm going to move on to the next topic on the list, and that is supplier records. So I'm going to begin with a search for the supplier record to demonstrate some of the Find Tools functionality. So in the first database column, I'm going to select supplier. Brenda sent me another question related to the fiscal year. And that is, if we are rolling over from one year to the next using LEAP instead of the client, will we need to create new fiscal year manually for the first time? No, it will function the same when we do the fiscal year rollovers. It will automatically create the fiscal year and replicate the funds, and you will have to just allocate the funds. There are just a few libraries that like to create their fiscal years themselves from scratch. So nothing will change for you. Everything will just function the same. Okay, so I am on the Find tool now and have checked the supplier in the database column. And so if I wanted to, do a search for all of Baker and Taylor's supplier records that I've created for my EDI accounts with Baker and Taylor, I would want to use some filters. So I'm going to begin by selecting some filters. And I will start with the owner. So I'm going to choose, I'll choose Indian Trails this time for an owner. And I'm going to add in another filter. It allows you to filter out the supplier records so that you can identify only EDI supplier records or non-EDI supplier records. So I'm going to choose all EDI supplier records and press apply. And then I can type in the name Baker. And that brings up all of the EDI supplier records for Indian Trails for Baker and Taylor. I'm going to open one up. Just open up the first one and press open to demonstrate that for you. One moment, I forgot to close my email, so I'm going to close that so it doesn't beep. And the supplier record really looks exactly the same as the one in the client, except that they still have not added the links drop-down menus to easily access linked records. So in the supplier record, it has the name and alternative name. For EDI records, it does require the SAN and account number. The EDI setup section needs to be set up with the information that you have received from your vendor. This includes the FTP address, your username and password, and the directory information for your FTP. And you can also add in any notes. On the Orders tab, you can type in the address for your orders. And this also has that same drop-down menu as the client to copy the address to the payments, claims, or both tabs. So I will close that and demonstrate creating a new supplier record. So it's fairly easy to just open up the new drop-down menu at the top and click supplier. So here you can type in the name and alternative name. And I've already got the SAN saved in its memory, so I'm going to just add in what already exists in the computer system. So to set up the EDI orders, you have to have one of these checkboxes checked. So if you just have EDI orders, you would check EDI orders. If you also have an enriched account like Indian Trails Evanston, you also need to select enriched EDI orders. And if you have an ASN account, you will need to select ASN. So then you would add in the FTP address, a username, password, your POA directory and your PO file directory and the PO file extension. So then you would add in any address information that you would want to add in and copy it to the payments, claims, or both. So it's something that you're already pretty familiar with. And I'll just press save. Okay, so are there any other questions that you have today about fiscal year fund records or supplier records? While you are thinking about any questions that you might have, I'm going to start a poll. My poll for today is, how excited are you to be able to use Leap for acquisitions? Extremely excited, very excited, excited, not excited at all. So I know it's kind of odd dealing with the incremental upgrades as small amounts of features are added and not a full workflow. It does allow you to learn about small parts of it at one time. Okay, I think that is everyone. And I am going to, well, we're still waiting for a few more people to answer the poll, so I'm going to wait another few seconds. So this won't be our only webinar on this topic. As more features are added, we can review the topics again. And I will be planning on additional webinars once a full workflow has been added. So I'm going to end the poll. We have about 20 people that answered and share the results. So definitely got plenty of people that are excited, very excited, or extremely excited. But for those of you who are not so excited, I completely understand. It can be kind of odd dealing with the way that Innovative is upgrading the web app. Feel free to provide any feedback after we've tested it out, and we can forward it on to Innovative with suggestions on how to improve it. And also feel free to ask me any questions as they come up by sending the questions to help@ccslib.org. And we do have a virtual training evaluation that I would like you to fill out at the end of the session. So I will send you that link. See, we do have some questions that have come in. I'm going to stop sharing. One moment. Matt asked, does the vendor give us the directory info? Yes, the vendor will provide you with all of the FTP and directory info. Brenda commented that she would like the Leap to have 2 bib records up on the screen at the same time. I've definitely heard that comment before, and I will make sure that Innovative hears that that is very important. We can add that to the product roadmap as a suggestion for the product. So I am going to post the link to our training survey in the chat and also email that to you. Please do let us know what you thought of today's training. If you want me to review anything else, I still have some time. There's 30 minutes. We can end early and just have a 30-minute webinar today. Or I can do some additional demonstrations on these topics. So if you have not registered for next week's session, please do so on L2. And after the session, I will be posting the video of today's webinar online, and I'll email out the video as well as link to the slides and the link to the training course. So Cassie asked if I can demonstrate it again and how to add funds. Yes, I can definitely demonstrate how to add funds again. Cassie, did you want me to demonstrate how to create the fiscal year record again, or just the funds? So just the funds. All right, one moment. I have to share my screen again. Okay, Cassie, what library do you work for? Okay, Evanston, great. I will start with an Evanston fiscal year. So I'm going to search for Evanston's fiscal year. I have to add the condition of the owner. And click on Evanston Public Library and apply that. And open up EVK 2022. So from the fiscal year, you click on the Funds tab. And here you will find all of your funds. To add the new fund, you would click on Add a New Fund. Type in the name. And an alternative name. The alternative name is required. You will select the owner, but it should appear as a default for you when you log in. It wasn't default for me because I'm logged in as a CCS staff member. And then you would select the type. So most funds are the regular type. There are some libraries that do have donation and deposit accounts, so most likely it will be regular. The default is for the transfers and display settings to be checked. So transfers is important when you need to transfer money from one fund to another. And display allows it to be displayed in drop-down menus, like in your drop-down menu for your purchase order and your invoices. So next, you would press save. After you save the record, you can add the beginning allocation. To do that, you can press Actions and Adjust Fund Balances. Assign beginning allocation is already checked. And you will add your beginning allocation into the amount. You can add a note if you'd like, and then press Update Fund. So this will be recorded in your history. and the encumbrance limits and expenditure limits will have your beginning allocation applied to it. After the beginning allocation has applied, the adjust fund balances menu will be changed. You'd be able to add a supplementary allocation or a reduction in allocation. You'd also be able to transfer money from one fund to any of your funds. Cassie, do you have any other questions about that process of creating the fund? Matt asks, next week's session doesn't look like it will cover creating on-order items. Is there a best practice guide for that process? So next week's session will be focused on the automatic creation of the purchase order and releasing the purchase order and sending it. So I will demonstrate as part of that workflow that it does create the on-order items automatically because it will include the usage of the 970 field. And we will have time to cover manual creation of item records. If you'd like, we can review anything else during that session. Brenda asks, any timeline idea for when the things we can't do in LEAP will be updated to everything we can do in the client will be available in LEAP? It's a good question. Let me take a look at the product board to remind myself of the actual status. So I'm going to share that. Oh, I am still sharing. You should see my screen has the innovative product board on it. So right now they are working on 7.2, and this should be ready by the end of sometime in the summer, so that we'll have more serials records, and that will include some additional purchase order and invoice actions. And this will include canceling and crediting actions for the purchase order and line items. There's very minimal amounts of crediting abilities right now. And so by 7.3, that will include the manual acquisitions workflow in LEAP, and that will be in Q3. So we should see that coming out in the fall. At that point, I'm not exactly sure what would still be missing, if anything, from the acquisitions module. And it's possible that there could be some like minor issues missing or issues related to display. It looks like the sub-fund management doesn't have a specific date yet, so I do see that on the list. And that is just listed as upcoming. So sub-fund management would be when they plan to add the hierarchy view so that you can see the summary funds and the child funds under the summary fund. So that is what we have so far. But as for still being able to use the client, we don't have any specific date yet on when Innovative will stop supporting the client. So at this point, we would encourage you to still get to know LEAP as much as you can, and let us know what you think about it so it can be improved. But you can still use the client at the same time. Lay asks, is this just an option to use acquisition in Leap versus the staff client? So right now it really is just an option since the full workflow has not been added. It's really just available for you to start training and testing it out. It can be awkward to go back and forth between the Leap and the client. So I would just encourage you to practice what I demonstrated and give it a try. But your day-to-day tasks can still be done in the client as much as you like. Does that answer your questions? And so Kelly asks, is there a place we can practice what you showed us today? Yes, so I have created a course with the features that are available, and I will be sending you that link again. So to find that course from the CCS website, if you click on how to, you can scroll down to the bottom to access online courses. And acquisitions in Leap is at the top. This will take you to the course page. And so this course page includes the videos for each of the processes that I demonstrated today separately, as well as some, so if you can see at the top, it has some of the videos that were in the acquisitions course for the client. And it has the guided activities and simulations. So right now, this includes the find tool, the setup tasks, the fiscal year and fund records and supplier records, importing records, EDI ordering workflow, and EDI invoicing workflow, as well as the video on the fiscal year rollover. Lay asks, is this because Innovative is taking the staff client away in the future? Innovative has not told us that they will stop supporting the staff client. I would assume that at some point in the future, they will. At some point in the future, you would be required to switch to only using Leap. But for the time being, you still have the option of using either the staff client or Leap until further notice. But we do encourage everyone to just give it a try and get to know Leap before they do remove their support from the staff client. But we still really do not know when that will be. Are there any other questions? Well, thank you for attending the webinar today. Please do sign up for next week's webinar if you haven't done so yet. And I will send everyone the email with access to the video and slides and course links as soon as a video is available. Have a good day, everyone.